Hello, my name is Jan Houston and I'm working for the Social Care Council at the minute. I'm working regarding dual registration and also for social workers who are applying who are internationally qualified. So I'll be very keen to meet you all today.
Morning everybody, I'm Paul Rooney, Professional Advisor. I work alongside Jan as well in the IQSW process, and we're keen to help in any way we can to get everybody legally fit for purpose here going forward.
Morning everybody, I'm Julie Downs. I'm one of the registration team leaders and I'm working alongside Paul and Jan and my colleague Ruth, the registration manager, who isn't with us today, just with the administrative process with dual registration for the group of TUSLA people.
Morning, my name is Michael and I'll be giving you the demo this morning. I'm from the database team and we look after the portal, and you'll be seeing the portal this morning.
I'm Alison and I work in the workforce development team, and my main role would be around engagement. Nice to meet you.
My name is Declan McAllister. I'm the Director of Registration and Corporate Services for the Social Care Council. Have been working very closely with our departmental colleagues in relation to EU exit and all things Brexit and their impact on social work, probably, I would say, going on a good couple of years. And I'm just absolutely delighted that we're at this point to assist and support colleagues at TUSLA. So from that point forward, I'm going to hand over to Maria just to say a quick hello, and perhaps just for everybody else to say a quick hello this morning. Maria.
Okay, thank you, Declan. Good morning, everybody. Delighted to see you all here. For those who don't know me, I'm Maria Mcinnis. I'm a Service Improvement Manager in the Chief Social Worker's Office, and I am here representing Ger, who unfortunately couldn't be with us this morning. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of context to the workshop, and then I'll be passing back to our colleagues in the Social Care Council to give you the rundown in the whole application process. So basically, what this is all about is that there's a requirement for dual registration for social workers employed by TUSLA who are practicing in the Republic of Ireland, who physically cross the border as part of their duties and responsibilities to practice in Northern Ireland. That's always been a legal requirement for social workers to be registered to practice, but prior to Brexit, there was an automatic recognition of professional qualifications within the jurisdictions. That's no longer the case. Social workers are protected title in the Republic of Ireland and in Northern Ireland, and in the Republic all social workers are required to register with CORU on the Social Workers Registration Board. That registration is there to support and maintain standards, ethics, professionalism, particularly given that we are working with some of the most vulnerable people on our island. The equivalent agency in Northern Ireland is the Northern Ireland Social Care Council, and that is a public body established to support similarly high quality standards in relation to social work and social care. So in terms of setting the context around this, for any social worker who's travelling across the border of Ireland and representing themselves as a social worker, they must be registered as a social worker with the Social Care Council in Northern Ireland. Registration is not required where a social worker doesn't physically cross the border. So if you're working remotely or by email, then you don't have to have registration in Northern Ireland. But where you are walking across or driving across the border, you absolutely do. And it's an equivalent responsibility. So for social workers from Northern Ireland who are coming into the Republic, they're also required to have registration with CORU. And that's another workshop for another day. So in preparation for this, Chief Social Worker's Office had written out to all the TUSLA areas, just asking the areas to consider the nature and the frequency of social workers physically crossing the border. Now, obviously, it's much more significant for the border counties. But having said that, question from people further down south from Kerry and places like, but whether it is a requirement for them also. Well, yes, it is. It absolutely is, where you have purposeful or legitimate cause to be crossing the border as part of your work. And as we know, our families are highly mobile. So the request from Ger was really for every area to think about it in terms of having someone who has registration where that's not required frequently, like it might be in the border counties. So this workshop is going to focus on the whole application process, and I'm delighted that we have our colleagues from Social Care Council in a position to do this for us, because I think it's really helpful. TUSLA is now registered as an employer on the Social Care Council. That means that the application process and the payment for the application process will be handled centrally with TUSLA as an employer. The people who are going to talk next will tell you more about the whole process, but just as the principle of continuous professional development, where you are registered, that will hold for the Social Care Council registration as well. But I would ask you, and I think in the last session we had really active questioning, and it just made the whole workshop much more dynamic. And don't worry about whatever the question is, ask it, because it was just really helpful in the last workshop to get all those questions out there. So I really encourage, because we may or may not, I think we have a bigger group today, but certainly use the text, the chat function or the hand function to raise any questions you have. So yes, the Social Care Council for having prepared this workshop for us. I encourage you all to get in there and ask your questions as it goes along. And I'm going to pass you back over to Declan and his team now to take you through it all. Declan, over to you.
Ria, thanks very much indeed. Look, we could probably spend a couple of days telling you about the Social Care Council, but I'm going to do this in true digital style. Just a very short video, which will really explain what we do and who we are. And then I'm going to hand over to my colleagues, Paul and Jan, for the first part of the agenda this morning. So just bear with us a little sec and we'll get this video running for you. Thank you. Hopefully that came through okay. I'm just going to pick up on a couple of things. Ray was very clear, obviously, about our application process, and I know my colleagues Paul and Jan will talk around the whole professional aspect of dual registration. Julie's going to pick up on the application process and an element of the assessment process as well, and Michael's going to pick up on a demo around how to do this digitally and online. Maria has kindly reflected to everyone that TUSLA are going to cover the costs for annual registration, and that's linked directly as part of your application process. So you need to make sure you choose TUSLA as your employer, because that's how we square up that circle in terms of obviously ensuring payment on your behalf from TUSLA on an annual basis. So look, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleagues Paul and Jan, who are going to pick up the whole area of dual registration for the social work profession.
Morning everybody, you're very welcome. Really, the starting point in the context, and Maria has talked about this, but the UK left the European Union in the 1st of January 2020, and a transition period then was developed up and put in place until the 31st of December 2020, and that was to allow countries in the UK to make alternative arrangements. With the EU Brexit bill, which is due, it's going through the process in Westminster at the minute, The UK government has confirmed that it intends to implement a renewed regulatory framework for all professionals, and this currently requires social workers to be registered wherever they are practicing across the UK and indeed in Northern Ireland. There is also a spirit of flexibility around this about how we make sure that we have transitional arrangements that actually facilitate good practice and doesn't impact negatively on practice. The previous context to Brexit for us was that we were all in the EU. We had responsibilities under the EU directive, and that was freedom of movement across Europe in relation to professional practice right across the piece. And we always had a facility in the previous EU directive in relation to permission around temporary mobility and short-term working in another EU country. And that's really, really important because that allows a legislative context to people working across borders and jurisdictions. And obviously Brexit has upset that significantly, and we're all trying to make sense of what that means in reality. So really, the important thing to remember today is, because I think sometimes you think this is a very bureaucratic process. If you're working as a professional across borders, and given the legislative framework in each of our countries around our roles and responsibilities, it's really, really important that we're legally permitted to work across jurisdictions. And if that's not the case, then there's all sorts of implications around practice. So, you know, we have to be working within a legal framework, and we want to do that in a way that actually facilitates. Jan will talk in further detail around the process, but what our aim is to make sure that everybody is legally able to work across jurisdictions, both within NI and the UK, and hence the dual registration process. Now, as Maria outlined earlier, our view is that, you know, your primary registration is in your country of origin. So if you're working in Northern Ireland, working into the south, it's the Northern Ireland Social Care Council. If it's the other way around, as it is with yourselves, then it's Carew. We have some information. I mean, we process a lot of internationally qualified social work assessments for people wanting to come and work in Northern Ireland, and Carew do the same. So there may be some people in Carew, or sorry, in TUSLA, who have previously qualified outside Ireland. So we'll talk about that as well. Those who have qualified in the UK, it's a much more straightforward process in the sense of online registration. But at this point, it's important to pass to Jan, and we can sort of tease this out a wee bit more with you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I don't want to say too much at this point about the actual process, because Julie will talk you through that, and Michael, as to how you actually apply. But just a couple of pointers, following up on what Paul said, that if you are employed by TUSLA and working full-time in the south of Ireland, it is very straightforward if you qualified in, say, for example, Northern Ireland. So there, for example, Janique, who undertook her social work qualification in the north of Ireland, she can apply, or anywhere else in the UK, you can apply through the straightforward application process on our website, where you go onto the portal and you set up an account and go ahead and register. And TUSLA will be paying your fee. Now, our understanding at this point is that TUSLA will pay for the first year, and then you would be negotiating with your manager as to whether you need to remain on the Social Care Council register. So you would discuss that with your manager, and then they would confirm whether they're going to pay your fee or not. Can I say, if you have, and this is a couple of people have approached us regarding this, they have 2 part-time posts, one in the Republic of Ireland and one in the north of Ireland. If you have permanent posts in that position, you must be registered with both regulators, and you must meet the CPD requirements of both regulators. Now, there are a very small number of people who that applies to. If you undertook your social work qualification in the Republic of Ireland or in any other country, you have to go through the internationally qualified social work assessment process. And again, that is all on the website, and you set up an account on the portal and go through your application. But what we're really hoping today is that Julie and Michael will talk you through that and hopefully avoid any blips or any query and answer any queries that you might have. We have been trying to respond to applications as quickly as possible so that everyone can get onto our register. And as Paul said too, it is the same for people who are working in the north of Ireland. They're having to register with Corey and they're having to go through the complete process with them. So I think it's better that, unless you have any questions at this point, that we just go ahead and work our way through the process and let's see what you think. And if you have any queries, please ask. You can either put them in the chat box, or if you just put your hand up and we'll come back to you. And at the last workshop, a number of people got in touch with us afterwards with queries, and that's fine too. Not everybody wants to ask in a large group. So the whole point is, though, of today is that we want to help you, support you, and if you have any queries, we want to answer those quickly, so that you can get through the process. So that's all I want to say for now.
Thanks very much, Jan. Thanks, Paul. And I would encourage everyone this morning, look, if you're happy with raising your hand and asking questions via the video or whatever, please do so. But please also include them in the chat, and my team will respond as quickly as we get the questions through. So, I mean, that's the whole element of the professional reason for dual registration. And I know Jan and Paul will probably come back in again in relation to the process, but I'm going to hand over to my colleague Julie Downs. Julie looks after really the international qualification application route and the process around that, and works very closely with Paul and Jan in that respect. So Julie, I'm going to hand over to you in relation to the whole process for the application assessment, including qualifications, declarations, that approval, and obviously you can let everybody know about the support lines as well. They've obviously come in handy over the last number of months. Thanks, Julie.
Okay, no problem at all, Declan. So as Jan and Paul had said, the application process is online based, and I think Michael has shared the guidance there in the chat facility as well. So basically you'll be going onto our site, onto our portal site, and creating an account with yourselves and setting up a password. When that's done, you'll be able to go in and select the pathway to which you would be applying. So anybody that has qualified in the UK, either that be, you know, Queen's or UU or any of the universities, you know, in England, Scotland or Wales, would apply, you know, via the UK based pathway as well. So it'll be a matter of just completing, you know, you'll be asked, you know, for personal details, your employment details, and you'll be able to select TUSLA, you know, directly as an employer with yourselves as well. Endorsement section there can be, it's a free text box, and that can be completed. That can be just completed by entering the name of your endorser. And I think Ger Brophy had provided us with a list there. So the endorser would be who your local area manager would be as well. The next stage would be the declarations that are required with the application in regards to regulatory bodies, any health declarations that you may have, and in regards to sort of offences and things as well. And we also require identification documents. So that would either be a copy of your birth or marriage certificate, and additionally photographic ID, either your passport or driver's license. We would need those signed, dated and verified by a manager as well, and these can be uploaded onto the site as well. And the other most important thing is we require a letter of professional understanding, a professional standing from Carew, as well. Now, unfortunately, we can't request that on your behalf from Carew, due to GDPR regulations. That has to come directly from yourselves as well. So whenever all that is completed, then you'll be asked to complete the personal declaration at the end of the application as well. But Michael's going to do the run through of the site as well after this. And like I say, it's all being recorded as well. And like whenever you come to the end of your application, just hit submit and just exit the browser as well. And like I say, we'll be invoicing for the application fee, directly to TUSLA as well. And like I say, I have a slide here just with contact details as well, if I can just share my screen. So, and I'll share these in the chat facility afterwards as well, with just my direct email address, and my colleague is Ruth as well, and then the direct email address for any other queries coming through as well. But anything at all, please get in touch with us and we'll help as soon as ever possible as well. But like I said, the most important thing is, we need your copies of your ID documentation and that letter of professional understanding from Carew. And just to go back, to the start again, anybody that has, qualified from outside NI or UK as well will have to go through the IQSW route. Now, the majority of qualifications that we've seen, in the past coming from RI, whether it be from Dublin, Cork, and Jan Paul, keep me right, as Galway, we would have seen and assessed before as well. It's just there is additional information required in the IQSW pathway as well, which Michael will demonstrate to you afterwards. So I think that covers more or less the procedure. So once everything has been submitted here, Jan and Paul and myself will assess your application and we'll make the decision on registration afterwards, and we'll be in touch with you as soon as that is done, to advise you of your social care registration number as well. So I have nothing else unless anybody has any questions at all.
Julie, thanks very much indeed. It'd be good, I think, if you share the contact details that was on that slide into the chat function so everybody can pick them up. I think in terms of where we want to be then is to head to Michael now. And I know Michael's got one he prepared earlier in true chef style, to actually give you that understanding of what the digital pathway is. I think just to be really clear this morning, if your qualification is within the UK, then you simply use our general registration pathway. If it's outside the UK, such as from the Republic of Ireland, then you need to use the international qualification route. As Maria said, please make sure you identify TUSLA as your employer going along that pathway. And again, make sure as part of that endorsement, Ger has identified a number of key individuals. They are now available on the digital pathway at that particular point. And you should recognize one or more of the names on that pathway, and you simply select who's the most appropriate individual as part of the endorsement piece. I think Julie's been pretty clear about the types of identity documents that we require, but all of that can be scanned and uploaded as part of that single digital pathway route. The support email address is there as well, and for anybody that has any difficulties, please just drop us an email. Julie and Ruth are on the other side of that email, and we'll certainly respond within at least 4 to 5 hours based on what other activities are going on in the organisation that day. So look, without further ado, I want to hand over to Michael. He's going to do a complete demo from setting up the account. So you set up an account online first, and then you pick your registration route. So Michael, over to you.
Okay, can I just check with everybody? You can all see the screen there. You're seeing the internationally qualified social worker page. Yeah. Okay. Just make sure over there. So that's what I'm going to start with. We've put the various links to these pages in the chat function, as you've probably seen. This is the main page here that you'll be looking at in terms of our main website, which is internationally qualified social worker page. And just to give you some, highlight some things on this page. There's a general guidance notes for the application by portal. So that's just a little guidance document that'll also basically backs up what I showing you here this morning. We'll be showing you, and also there's the TUSLA guidance that we put the link in to as well. That's just a small guidance document just summarising the issues there that Julie has talked about. But what you need, part of what part of the form you need to complete about the endorsement section, also about the fee not having to be paid when you do the actual application, that will be payable by TUSLA. So that's just some of the as I some things to look out for on that page. And when you come to that page as well, you will see there's a apply by portal. If you click on that, that'll take you straight to the portal page. So it'll take you here. So what I'm going to do first of all is, Declan says, very first thing, if you need to create an account and what you have to do that. So when you come to our the main portal, so that's the address there, and again it's in the chat function. So you'll come to our home screen and you'll see the option. If you have an account already, you just log in, but if you haven't, you go to create an account. So you click on create an account. Then this is the point that Julie was making as well. It's asking you where you're resident. If you're a UK resident or a non-UK resident, there's a different pathway to go. In this case, because most people here will probably be more relevant that they're non-UK, we'll just highlight this or demo this by doing the non-UK resident route. So you click on that. The next screen will be the registration screen. So it's simply going to ask you for username, email address, to choose a password, to give your details. So I'm just going to quickly fill this in just to take you through, because it actually does then show you the other pathways that you need to do once you come on to do your registration. So bear with me. So you just choose a username, use the username of your choice. Just fill out your email address. Choose your title. Mr. First name, surname. Just choose a password again, whatever's relevant to yourself. You'll be asked to confirm the password. Write your date of birth. Enter your date of
Michael,
birth.
is there a structure in that password, isn't there?
Yes,
so many characters.
Let's be 8 characters long. It needs to be 8 characters long, and it needs to have at least one capital letter in it, and also a special character, so such as an apostrophe, or sorry, not an apostrophe, an asterisk, or an exclamation mark, something like that there, or a hash. So it has to have a special character as well. So fill out your information. Again, it'll ask as well you to fill out your address details. As you see there, this we have a postcode, sort of a postcode lookup where it automatically looks up. That's probably not going to be, that's not going to work for the error code if you're using the error code, but you can just type it in, free type it in, and it'll be there. So you don't need to use the lookup. If you have your error code, just type it in. You'll see there that once everything is complete and everything is fully populated, you'll see that the submit button will go from grey until to live, so it'll light up. So you'll see it has been greyed out for most of the time that I've been filling information in. But once all the relevant fields are completed, it will become available, and you click submit. So you see it's come through registered. Now you're registered, it'll come in to so that you know that you're aware that you're properly logged in. You'll see here at the top of the screen where the mouse is, you'll see that your username will appear, and also it will appear down here. It takes a bit of time to sync up, but your name will appear down in the here where it says hi, so it will be personalized. It'll say hi Michael, hi Declan. It will be personalized. So the next step that you'll go to then is to apply now, and you click on apply now. And you'll see on this screen, it's just a bit of information. So it'll talk about the registration process, give you a bit of details about that, what happens, and also it gives the contact details for our customer service team. Just basically an info screen, and the next thing you do is just click continue. Again, it just asks again to just check your details. So it's just another details confirmation check. Just go through, check it, everything should be there. It'll be pulled through from the previous form, and just hit continue. Again, there is a little bit of information, some information about how to register. Again, just directing back to the main website, and also what you need to do. So again, it's covering a lot of things that Julie talked about there, what you need, your employment information, whatever ID documents you need, who within your organization should endorse, and so on. But in your case, don't worry about the making card payment. You won't have to do that. So this is where we've talked as well earlier on about there's 2 pathways. So for anybody who's qualified within the UK, so Northern Ireland or GB, you go and apply, hit the apply button here for the qualified within the UK. Anybody who is qualified outside of the UK, so in ROA or anywhere else in the world, you hit the apply button here for this one. Now, we are going to just focus on the internationally qualified one. This is the one we're going to demo because it actually contains everything that the other one, it actually has a bit more, but everything that's with the ordinary UK qualified form basically is a sub form within the internationally qualified. It has about 10 sections. The internationally qualified has, I think it's about 16. So we'll focus on that because you'll see that the UK one is sort of sub-contained within the internationally qualified. Okay. So in that case, you'll sit and click apply. You would click apply, and that would launch you into the form. So as Declan says, in the best traditions of Blue Peter, we have one prepared earlier. So I'll take you in here. So you'll come in. What I'll just tell you about here though, folks, is that when you have logged in, you have your account, we have an area called the application history. So you'll see as I go through and show you the form, there is a save and exit button, which means that if you need to stop midway through doing the form, you can actually stop and come back and resume it. It will be held within this page here within the portal, and I will actually send a link out to you all about that. But you can come back and resume. Here it'll say continue with the application, and you can continue on. So I'm just going to take you in and just look at the actual structure now of the form. Just quickly go through. We'll not be going through it in any great detail, but I'll just show you the main areas or the main sections within the form. So you hit continue. So launch this in. So it's going to take us into the form now. So section 1 is just guidance, and again, just some information. Guidance again just tells you what you need, very much what Julie has explained to you earlier on, and what's in the summary document as well. So just read through that. Then you hit your next page. The next page will be contact details. I know this will be the 3rd time you've seen this, but it just asks for another confirmation of your details. Just ensure that everything's there. What you'll notice is you'll see these asterisks beside the field names, or the form field names, and those have to be, that basically means it's a mandatory field. It has to be completed, and if it's not completed, the form will not let you move on. It will not let you fully submit the form. So just fill out your details. The next section is just your address details again. Just again, check through them, just confirm that they're correct, but they should be pulled through from the earlier stage when you created your account. Next page, section 4 is just previous name. So if anybody's recently got married or changed their name by deed poll, you would put that in there. If you don't, just click no, but it is a mandatory field, so you can't leave it blank. It has to either be yes or no. Next section is section 5, which is your qualifications. So just put in your qualification details in there, fill all that out. I'll not go through it there, but there's something I have to tick here. So just your qualification details, just fill out what's relevant to you, and hit next. Next page. Next section is just about assess placements. That's one of the differences you're going to have within the internationally qualified form. It's going to ask you about your placements. You'll not have this in the register or qualified in the UK. That won't be with, that's one of the sections that's not here. Again, just go through, check your details, fill out whatever. If you have the relevant placements, just fill out those details, fill that out. Again, hit next. The next one is your employment history. So again, just fill out the details. Anywhere that there's an asterisk, it is mandatory to fill out. So if you just fill out that information. The next section, section 8, is your current employment. So you'll be putting in your details about your TUSLA. So that's where you'd fill that information out and fill out, again, the relevant information. Again,
Michael, TUSLA is available in the drop-down list, isn't it? Do you want to just demo that?
Let's see. Yeah. So your organization. So Well, no, it's not actually. I'm just looking, Declan. It's just a free text. It's actually free text there. There's no, so you just type in TUSLA, folks. It's not actually, no, it's there. I think what Maria was saying, the details are there behind in terms of we have the information about your endorser and things, specific information. But I think it's just there. It was made sort of free text in that situation. Again, work through your information. Hit next page. The next section then is into regulatory bodies. This is also within the normal UK qualified form as well. So just your regulatory bodies. If you've been with any other bodies, whatever, just provide that information. Next section is the disciplinary record. Again, if that's relevant, to fill it out. If you have nothing, just no. But again, you have to pick one or the other. It's either yes or no, because they're mandatory. You have to provide an answer for them. Again, then you have criminal offences section 11. Then you move on to the endorsement. Now, again, you can provide your endorsement information in there. This particular part of the form is not actually mandatory, so we've left it. Again, if you can provide us with information, fantastic. Put it in and put in the information that you have about your endorser. You can see there it's free text, but it's not mandatory. If you don't know or you're not aware, it's not going to stop you from moving through the form. You can still move on and submit the form, and you can come back to us at a later point and provide that information. But I think, as Maria said earlier, that's Ger Brophy has that information. There is various endorsers that have been set out for regional areas, and that will be there. So you can get that from Ger or probably Maria as well. So the next section is then the just health. So it's what we call sort of the declaration sections, just relevant health issues if you have to put it in there, and then hit next. Again, language proficiency, it's there for any of our other internationally qualified staff from around the world. May not be relevant to you, but again, it's not going to stop you from moving on. None of the questions are actually mandatory fields, so it'll allow you just to work through the form and fully submit. Again, if you click next, there is equal opportunities, if you can fill that out. But again, it's not mandatory, but we would ask you to fill out at least the nationality details, because it's relevant because of the Brexit, and it's just good for us to have that data. So if you can fill out the nationality data. Then the next page is just into the declaration section. So again, it's just asking you, this is where you're basically giving your digital signature, which you'll see down here. Just basically read through. It's saying that it's a follow-up of what you've done to make sure, basically have you all the documents that you need, have you done that, have you provided them, what we need from you, all the different things, and basically that you understand the Social Care Council registration issues and rules and codes of practice and standards and so on. So that's just there for you, basically to confirm that. So at that point, you then just click agree and say that's your digital signature, and then hit submit. At this point, you'll be launched into the fees page. Now, the way around this is basically just not to worry about it. You'll come to this page, but you don't have to do anything. So you'll see the pay now button and everything there. Basically, don't do anything. Your options are to just go up here and log out, sign out, or just close down the browser. Or you can just hit the home button, and that can take you back into the portal, and you can look at any other parts of the portal that may be relevant to you. There's other information within the portal, other things that you can check and do. And if you want to have just basically a look around the portal. As well as that, you'll see, or if you recall, across the top there was all the different section numbers. They are all interactive, so if you need to bounce through any part of the form, you can just click on the section number and it'll take you back. So basically that's the form. And as I say, when you get to the actual fee page, we see this unpaid fee, don't worry about it. Just, as I say, leave the browser, either log out, just close the browser window down, or as I say, if you want to explore further parts of the portal, you can click the home button and you'll see various other options. Okay. That's everybody okay? Any questions or?
Thanks very much, Michael. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour of our IQSW application. Look, colleagues, you might think there's an awful lot of information there to gather as part of the IQSW application pathway. I know Jan and Paul will be able to answer any particular questions around that assessment route or the need for particular information, but under statute, we're required to gather all of that information before we can actually complete an assessment of the qualifications and obviously an approval for registration. Look, at this point, I just want to say a big thank you to Michael, Julie, Paul, and Jan for the presentations this morning. But we've probably a little bit of time if there's any particular questions. I know in the previous session we had a number of questions around particularly CPD and the need for maintaining CPD and things like that while you're dual registered. And again, they seem to be obviously the main focus, but look, happy to take any questions at this point in time. Okay, sorry, Janique.
Sorry,
go
it's
ahead,
Sinead McDowell. Yeah. How are things? I qualified in Northern Ireland, and so therefore I'm completing the shorter form. But it's looking for a national insurance number from me, but I don't have a national insurance number. It's not accepting my PPS number.
I'll pass that on to Michael because we have a way around that one. Michael.
Okay.
Well, it should be on the form. We should be able to log it. We have set it up that it does recognise the ROI form of our national insurance number. So
if it doesn't, if it's not recognizing your number, again, just drop a support call email through to the registration team. We've checked both obviously countries' key employee numbers, and they should work fine.
Should work. Yeah. But if it doesn't, as Declan says, you can just put in our national insurance number has two letters, then 6 digits, and then another letter. So you could just put in something like AA, and then 6 zeros, and then an A, and that'll get that sort of a dummy way of getting around it. But if you can get in contact with me, as I am putting my details into the chat here, if anybody has any issues like that, please contact me directly, and I'll help you get through the form. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sinead. Janique, I think you were going to ask a question. You're just on mute at the minute.
Sorry, it's always best my team to keep me shut up. Maria will know that. The question is about the length of time to get this process. What's the average length of time? I know sometimes there's difficulty with documents and things like that, but on average?
Well, we try to work, Janique, to literally trying to get an application completed once all the information is together. But I know Julie, probably Jan and Paul have a better idea from end to end how long the average it takes. Julie or Jan?
Well, I would say, Janique, because you qualified in Northern Ireland and you're filling in the shorter form, it really will not take a couple of weeks. If we have all the information and you have your letter attached as well from Coru, Julie and I are meeting every week to review any applications that are coming in, and if everything's there, we are going ahead and registering people. It will take longer if you're an IQSW and internationally qualified, because we have to go through a full assessment process. But for the shorter version, it's very quick.
Yeah.
I
was asking for staff really, Jan. Yeah, so it will be a slightly longer. As we're
yes,
really just trying to work
it will, because we have to check everything and check every piece of information that's come in. So that does take a little longer, but we're still moving fairly quickly with them. So it's not like months and months or anything like that. We're, if everything comes, the problems often, Janique, are when people don't send us all the information, or some of the, we have to go back. That's where it slows up.
The only thing I would add, Janique, is that the IQSW process is a very different process, because if you're coming to the UK or indeed Republic of Ireland with a qualification that you received outside Ireland, then there's a process required to assess that qualification. So there's slightly different emphasis. So that requires more detail around the background of the individual and their qualifications, so that we can make sure that they're actually qualified in their country of origin, and that maps across to the qualification in the country that they're coming to work in. Coru will do that, as do we. That takes a longer process because we have to map the qualification. It's a bit easier in relation to UK and ROI qualification, because obviously we know those. So if someone has qualified in other parts of Europe or indeed internationally, then that does take a bit of time, because we need to understand the qualification and how it meets the NI degree.
Paul, let me assure you, the process was painful to get registered down here. Jan, they didn't like our qualification that we did, you know.
Yeah,
so it was,
I'm sure they did not.
They did not. So it's let me assure you.
Yes, I've spoken to a number of people, Janique. I'm very aware of what people are experiencing. So it's not been easy.
If people are from an international or a European country of origin in terms of qualification, then the key is getting all the information. It's getting the transcripts of the program they undertook, and having good information, because when we get that information, then we can process it much quicker. So yeah, it is time consuming, there's no doubt. But in addition to that, rightly so. I mean, we picked up on fraudulent applications where people have said they were qualified and actually weren't. So again, this is about protecting the public as well.
Yeah, and I suppose really for myself as well as about how the CPD points are managed. I mean, possibly Jan and Maria, you may be able to help us out in terms of sort of, so we're not doubling up for staff. Yeah.
Well, that's being negotiated at the minute, Janique, and it's not confirmed as yet, but the hope would be that if Corru, as your primary regulator, you're completing your CPD with Corru, that we will accept that if you're coming over as an as and when worker, not taking a permanent contract. But that has to be confirmed as yet. There's ongoing work with Corru at the minute regarding a memo of understanding. So because we would want that the other way as well, so that staff from the north, social workers from the north, then will be able to use their CPD to keep their Corru registration current. Now, that has not all been confirmed as yet, but that is what we're working towards. So we're looking to make it as streamlined as possible so that you are not faced with having to meet 2 CPD requirements.
The key to this is that people are legally fit to practice, because we know that in terms particularly around child protection or adult safeguarding rules, if a social worker works in another jurisdiction and they're not legally fit to be there in terms of the legislation, then any work they're doing is undermined, and that can have a real impact. And that's why it's really important to get this process right.
Yeah, I think, Paul, it may also be worthwhile mentioning about the other UK jurisdictions and how this work will hopefully support, particularly if social workers from TUSLA need to travel to England, Scotland or Wales.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and vice versa, for people coming from England to work in a temporary arrangement in the south, and that's Crew have responsibility for that. But we're in discussions. It's hope we need to align as much as possible across the UK, and this is all new to us as well, because previously we didn't. If you qualified in the UK and you came to work in a case in Belfast, a temporary arrangement, there wasn't a requirement to register. Now that's all changed now, so we do need to get those alignments correct, so that people are legally fit to work across the UK and Ireland. So it's a work in progress. The Brexit bill is still a work in progress, but there is a lot of, I suppose, responsibility given back to regulators to ensure that we do make the right arrangements to support practice on the ground, and that's really, really important. That this is all about practice on the ground and making sure that the legal framework's there to support that.
Yeah, and I think I would just reiterate that. I know, particularly from our principle at the Social Care Council, this is about making sure there's no barriers in relation to social workers delivering protection services across the border. And we're working extremely hard with colleagues in Corru, but also in the other 3 regulators across the UK to really put in place a memorandum of understanding that facilitates ongoing social work services and certainly not delayed because of any regulatory barriers. Maria, I'm going to come to you. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I suppose it's nearly a positive unintended consequence of Brexit is that now we have to focus very much on developing a really good understanding of what's required in each other's jurisdictions. And I think that should help into the future with Janique's frustration with Coru in terms of satisfying the conditions for that. So, you know, out of the frustration of the required bureaucratic stuff that needs to go on, maybe in time we will actually benefit from this in terms of having just a really good, clear memorandum between all of us in terms of what's required. And I was just a question that was, and you know, this is my second time to go through the workshop. One of the questions that I hadn't thought of during your application review there was, and it was just, I noticed that the placements requirement. Does that is that only for recently qualified? Because I'm thinking, oh, have I applied to social care council after 30 years of social work practice? I can't remember where I and what dates and placements. So just in terms of those of us who might be longer in the tooth and not able to remember all this detail, is that required for everyone who will be?
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So I'm sure you maybe, well, I know placements are still imprinted in my mind from 30 years ago. I wouldn't have the exact dates, but you would put in where you were and, you know, the rough time and approximate time you were there. And it's more important that you reflect on the type of work that you did and whether you were supervised by a social worker and assessed by a social worker when you were there. And you know, you will remember, you know, were you there 4 months or 5 months? You know, it's sometimes then when we have people applying from other countries elsewhere, they maybe see placements as 10 days somewhere. We would not be seeing exactly that. So it's not that everyone sees this in the same way. So that's why we do ask about that. And it's very much integral to the social work degree. So we need to know that you've been on placement and where you've been.
Yeah, I think the other point too, Maria, is that a lot of that's more pertinent to international qualifications. So, you know, you will find we find a lot of applicants will apply that maybe did their social work qualification in Egypt or Africa or whatever, but they may never have practice. So post-qualifying experience is really, really important. Because if we're getting somebody who's never practiced before, now this is unlikely because you know your colleagues are coming from TUSLA, they're already in social work positions. So, but in terms of the IQSW process, it's a bigger piece. But if you're working already in Ireland as a social worker, there should be no issues really around that either.
Okay. In terms of, is there any other final questions, colleagues, this morning, just about any aspect of the application, CPD, fees, etc.?
Sorry, my name's Karen Hope. I'm the Principal Social Worker Child Protection in Mayo, and just to say I'm on audio. I was unable to access via the screen, so it's been very helpful and to call into the workshop. I just wish to clarify, because I suppose this has just come, you know, I suppose to our attention, and I'm kind of attending because I'm bringing back to the senior management meeting and then to staff. Is there a step-by-step guideline as to what you've gone through with us today that will be helpful for me to be able to share with staff as we progress?
Yes, Karen, there is. I know you're on audio, so you'll not have seen the links that we put in the chat. No. But look, Karen, if you want to even leave details or find some way to get your details to us, we can issue out the links to the actual TUSLA guide. It's available on our website on the international qualification part of the website. There's a special TUSLA guide there on the right hand side so that your staff can download that and follow those details.
Aaron, I'm just thinking, if you want to email me, I can certainly forward it all on to you as well.
That would be very helpful, because it's not the same as looking at it, but even listening in, I have a sense of what's involved, and it's about communicating that clearly with staff, because I think the majority, if not all, but the majority will certainly be going by the internationally qualified route.
Yeah. Okay.
If
you have my email address. Sorry.
The other point that this will be a rolling. I mean, there'll be people in the future who will need to follow this process. So I think it is around trying to keep that information pertinent. But if there's anything that you need, come back to us and we'll work through the applications with people if there's a problem. But and I know that the recordings is available as well, Declan. So hopefully that might be helpful if you're dealing with teams or you know, trying to get that information disseminated.
And just to say, just note through the Chief Social Worker's Office, so maybe we can attach a link to the guidance with that as well, just to make it easier for people to get the information.
Sorry,
Thanks, Maria.
and Janique here, I suppose finally at the moment, clearly, obviously we've got Brexit and it's ongoing. Just to confirm, I suppose, you know, sort of we have staff every day now probably having to work across the border. What is the memorandum of understanding is still ongoing, is it, until this is changed? Or
No, there's no memo of understanding. If you cross the border, any member of staff who crosses the border must be registered with the Social Care Council for their practice to be legal. That's the bottom line. And no one should be crossing the border to undertake any practice. That's okay, but they shouldn't. And it's just, I was speaking to somebody in Derry a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying they had to go to England because a young person had left a children's home and gone on the ferry, and they had to register with Social Work England to go to the north of England to see the family and to work with the young person, because there are no memo of understandings in places yet. So, for example, if you have to go to England, if you go onto Social Work England's website, they make it very clear that if you step a foot on English soil to practice as a social worker, you must be registered with them at the minute.
So what do we do when obviously one of our Donegal kids pops across, as they do, or we have a Donegal child who is in care in the north?
Well, your social worker has to be registered with the Social Care Council who goes over the border to undertake any practice.
I think there's been an understanding, obviously over the last couple of years, if work has been done virtually, then there isn't a need to register. That's within the regulators. But as Jan has said, you know, in essence, 1 hour across the border and you're using your title of social worker, it's the protection of title, obviously, that's pertinent in relation to ROI, Northern Ireland, England, Scotland, and Wales. And as Paula said, it's the legal standing. If you wish to practice social work outside of your home jurisdiction, you must be registered with that regulator.
I suppose I'm just slightly concerned if there's a child protection issue arises and my one dual registered person is off on sick. You know, how's that managed?
Well, I would just say that all staff who might under any circumstance ever be going across the border, get them registered.
100% we're going for it, but I suppose as the reality is obviously in terms of the time frame, Jan, I mean, maybe I should just speed up mine and go back up again, you know, but I suppose I'm just thinking about tomorrow, you know, when we have children, we then have an understanding with the sort of, I suppose, local social services, they can work with us on that one.
Yeah, and I think generally it's worked both ways, Janique, that there is this understanding that particularly services along the border have been mutually trying to support this, what you would say, emergency situations, by obviously employing social workers that are already registered with us in Northern Ireland and vice versa. And I know what local offices are doing that with their ROI counterparts.
Yeah,
I suppose also, Janine, I think I know what you're getting at in terms of how do we manage this, the transition of all this, and it's about organisations being very clear. Well, what numbers of our staff have cases outside Ireland or outside the Republic of Ireland, and what's the implications then for practice? And I think, you know, that also needs to feed back in relation to how cases are managed. In terms of, you know, if there are people who are working across jurisdictions, then they do need to be legislatively able to do so. Because I think the other issue there, and you talked about safeguarding and child protection, if the practice is undermined, particularly in relation to legal cases, if a social worker finds themselves in England and they're not actually legally able to practice, then that undermines the actual practice itself. And we realise this is an ongoing process, but I suppose the important point is it's about the legislative context. I mean, if a social worker from Northern Ireland went to Dublin without the proper qualifications and legal framework, then, you know, there's real issues there from a legal context. So I think it's about balancing that and also getting sharper around, you know, we're all having to step up here, because this is not where we would want to be at this point. I think Brexit has raised all sorts of really complex, difficult scenarios and situations, but I think it's also our responsibility to make sure that we're, at least people are legally able to practice wherever they may have to go. And that is a challenge from a practical perspective. And I think the other thing that we want to make sure is that we have a good process in place that actually very quickly can respond to that, Jenny. So I think if there were emergency cases that needed to be managed very quickly, we would be more than open to try and sort of work to make sure that people are not you know, at risk in relation to being legislatively able to carry out their role.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the emergency out of hours. You know, there's as simple as cases arise, you say, from both sides that, you know, sort of could then put that practitioner at risk, but more importantly, it could put the child at risk if we're not managing it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Colleagues, is there any other final questions before we finish up for this morning? Okay, well, look, can I say a big thank you, Maria, and to all colleagues from TUSLA who have joined us this morning. I know Alison will make the videos available to yourself, Maria, and again, please share widely across the organisation. We look forward to just continued support and engagement with TUSLA. And I say, in many respects, our principle is that we certainly don't want to put any barriers in place in relation to the delivery of particularly children and family services across both sides of the border. Hopefully this morning you've found it very, very useful in terms of progressing any applications. And as I say, the support information is there. Please don't hesitate to drop us an email or contact one of my colleagues if there's an issue arising. This is probably the last of our two workshops. But Maria, at any time, if you feel this would be helpful in the future, please just drop us a line. I know my colleagues will be more than happy to come along. And again, it will probably be virtual for a while still, but at some stage in the future, we never know, we could get together on a face-to-face basis. So can I thank you and your colleagues and my colleagues for this morning and your time and your questions, and we'll get as much information over to you for sharing as soon as possible.
Thank you, Declan. And just on behalf of everyone in TUSLA and the attendees today, thank you to the Social Care Council for taking the time to give us this workshop. It's been really helpful. I think, like anything, it raises a lot more questions and for us in terms of what we need to think about. And I've already sent an email there to Janique. I think we certainly have. Yeah. But I think, you know, in particular for our border counties, this is quite a pressing issue and we do need to understand it. So a big thank you. And like any application process that we're all very accustomed to online, to know now that you have people that you can, you know, see and name and phone and ask makes the world of difference in terms of getting through this process. So really appreciate that. So big thank you, Declan, and to all the team for taking the time today. It's much appreciated. And we certainly might take you back up on that offer into the future. But if we have the recording, I think it'll certainly help us get the message out there. So yeah, thanks a lot.